Let's talk about a more detailed timeline for the next bull run. Everyone's waiting for it, and honestly, the price action is going to suck until we get there. Unless you're interested in meme coins, then you can make some money. But if you want to invest in like non-meme coins and get money, you're probably going to have to wait until the next bull run. Yes, they're going to have pumps and dumps every once in a while on news, but they're not really going to achieve anything until that time comes. So when is that time going to come? Well, we can analyze the situation by looking at past bull runs. My guess is that the ETF is going to get approved in March sometime or January. The halving is in April. And generally, it takes a while for those things to coalesce and come together. But within a few months, the price is going to have to rise. Right now, we just read an article earlier today about how like big mining companies like Marathon and stuff are actually operating somewhat underwater and have been over the past year, maybe just slightly breaking even now. Remember, besides the electricity costs, they still have to pay for the facilities, the rent, the cooling, and everything else. So when you look at the cost to mine per Bitcoin, you can't just look at the number that they give for electricity, because the actual cost is much, much greater than that. You have to buy the mining you have to buy the mining hardware. The ant miners actually do cost a lot of money. You have to have the facilities to mine. You have to have a good cooling system, and all that stuff costs a lot of money. And many of the analysts say that the big Bitcoin miners like Marathon Digital have actually been operating at a slight loss or just breaking even. Well, after the halving, that cost is going to double. And that's assuming hash rate stays the same. If hash rate doesn't stay the same and keeps going up, it might have to triple by that point. So by that point, like if the price of Bitcoin doesn't go up to 40, 50K, they're not going to be able to maintain what they're doing. And you might be like, oh, that's great for BlackRock that wants to buy Bitcoin cheap. No, no, no. BlackRock actually bought Bitcoin mining shares. They don't want the price of Bitcoin to go down. They didn't actually buy Bitcoin themselves. So the thing is, if you buy Bitcoin mining shares, you want the price of Bitcoin to actually go up, because you're buying part of the company. You're not actually buying the Bitcoin. Very, very important distinction you have to make. If you buy Marathon Digital, you want the shares of Marathon Digital to go up. And the shares of Marathon Digital, which BlackRock has 10 billion shares of, only go up if Bitcoin costs a lot of money, because they have to make profit. They make profit, BlackRock makes money off their investment. They lose profit, BlackRock loses money off their investment. So that is a very, very important point that some people actually don't understand. They think, oh, BlackRock's going to sell the price of Bitcoin down and dump on us. No, 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 no. BlackRock doesn't actually own any Bitcoin. BlackRock owns shares of Bitcoin mining companies, and for them to make money off that investment, the Bitcoin price has to be high. So BlackRock wants that Bitcoin price high for their investment. And for those of you that missed my last video, BlackRock owns $411 million, at least, they might own more now, in Bitcoin mining companies. So even though that's not a lot for BlackRock, it is still a sizable chunk of change for them. And they're not going to want that investment to go to zero, because remember, if any of these companies go kaput, they lose those 10 million shares in that company. So it's very, very, very much to their advantage not to let all this crap go kaput in any of these companies. And that really depends on them holding the Bitcoin mining price high. See, that's how that kind of thing actually works. It's not just like, oh, well, we can just let it fall apart and not do anything. That's not going to let them do any good. If you're thinking about a company that actually might dump Bitcoin, that would actually be Fidelity, because Fidelity's been mining Bitcoin since 2014. BlackRock hasn't. BlackRock just has the Bitcoin mining companies. Fidelity actually has the Bitcoin. But the thing is, if they own the Bitcoin, they want to sell the Bitcoin at a high price too. They don't really want to dump it down, so they wouldn't directly dump it down. Fidelity has been a long-time Bitcoin miner and supporter since 2014, so I doubt they would really want to crash the price for any purpose whatsoever. But if BlackRock wants that price up, they might actually do manipulative things to get that price up so they can actually make money off their $411 million investment. And it's probably more by now, because that $411 million investment can actually soar to $4 billion if Bitcoin goes on a bull run. And, BlackRock has actually been buying the dip from these companies when Bitcoin's actually been lower in price. They probably made the most buys when these mining companies were at like, Bitcoin was at 15,000 or so, and they're continuing to buy. But they can only buy for so long if the Bitcoin price stays low. They actually need these prices to rise so they can actually make money from their investment. So they're going to be able to make money from their investment. And the thing is, like, they can't let the Bitcoin price go too low after the halving, or these companies are going to go bankrupt and they're going to lose their investment, like I said. So the thing is, BlackRock is going to try to manipulate the price up at least to 40, 50,000, where these companies can actually tread water. But it's going to have to be way, way more than that. And the thing is, like, BlackRock has an ETF application, in case you guys forgot, as does Fidelity and everyone else. And I just got news that LBRY, that company that the SEC beat, has submitted an appeal in a different circuit. So the SEC stands to lose everything if they lose all these appeals. I do think they will actually lose the Coinbase case. I think they're going to lose the Grayscale case. And I really do think they're going to lose the Ripple appeal as well. I'm almost sure they'll actually lose the Grayscale case if they decide to appeal, because the thing is, you can't submit any more information to an appellate court on an appeal, and the full judge panel is going to look at the exact same stuff as the 3-judge panel, and they're going to be like, hey, the SEC doesn't actually have any statements in their favor, because their actual argument against Grayscale was like, we don't like Grayscale's ETF, so therefore we're going to reject it. And the judge was like, nah, you don't actually have a reason for that. And I think the full panel of judges is basically going to decide the same thing. So we have a lot of ponage coming for the SEC, because a lot of these are just going to get slammed. And if they don't appeal the Grayscale case, I think eventually they're going to have to they're eventually going to essentially have to let Grayscale get their ETF. And I'm not really sure, that's definitely going to tarnish the SEC, and they're going to lose that battle. If they let the Grayscale ETF through, they have to let all the ETFs through. So I'm looking at that break date around January or March of next year for the SEC, because there's going to be a lot of lawsuits for them that they're going to lose if they don't let those Bitcoin ETFs through, in my opinion. So that's something that you have to keep considering of. So like the Bitcoin ETF is definitely going to come through early next year. You have the Bitcoin halving. And my guess is like towards the end of 2024, Bitcoin is going to rise close to $100,000. Now, but that's not its peak, because we have another big event in 2025. And by the way, once Bitcoin hits that 70,000 all-time high, then the altcoins are going to start popping off, especially because I believe Coinbase is actually going to win the case against the SEC, and secondary coins are not going to be securities on the market, so people won't be afraid to actually buy them. So that'll be a big boon for us as well. Now, the thing is, like, 2024 won't be the end of it, because I've mentioned in the video before that 2025 has a very important date at the beginning of the year, I believe in January, and there's a rule that's setting into effect. I believe big banks and financial institutions are going to be allowed to keep Bitcoin as 2%, not just 1%. I said 1% before, but I believe it was changed to 2% of their reserves. Now, 2% might not seem like a lot, but you have to remember these big institutions are multi-billion or possibly even multi-trillion dollar companies. BlackRock owns $10 trillion in assets. 2% of that still, like $200 billion. And the thing is, like, BlackRock's market cap net worth, despite it being holding 10 trillion in assets for other people, is only about 100 something billion. But even at 100 something billion, that's $2 billion worth of assets. A $2 billion buy does have the potential to pump up the crypto market a lot, and that's just BlackRock itself. If there's like a sudden buy from these companies of like $10 billion, that's definitely going to pump the price of Bitcoin even higher, even at an inflated price. So that could actually push it to about $150,000. And I kind of expect that all to happen by about April of 2025, which is about a year after the halving. So that's kind of my timeline. I expect to kind of slowly go up towards April of next year, 2024. And that's really because, I don't think they're going to pump it up all at once, but because of the mining pressures and the cost of mining slowly increasing, and that these companies don't want these miners to go under because they have a lot of investment in these companies, I see the price slowly inching up until maybe like March, April of next year, maybe with a big, big bump when the ETF actually gets through. So we should be decently close, if not at the all-time high, maybe like $50,000, maybe even $60,000. And then by the end of the year, I think it's going to continue to go up as mining difficulty gets closer and the SEC get its ass handed to it by some of these lawsuits, which I'm almost sure they're going to lose a lot of them. The LBRY case, they might actually win that one, but all the other ones, they're actually going to lose. And that's going to pump us up even more as more people get excited. Plus, the Fed Reserve, I think, is going to start lowering interest rates as we get into the end of first quarter, the second half of next year. And that'll be another stimulus. That'll be yet another stimulus for the markets actually going up. Because I do think they're going to quite kind of get their target, like 2.5, 2% rate. And then they're going to start lowering interest rates because the QT is really going to hurt the economy. Plus, with the election coming up, they're going to want these economic numbers to be better. So I do think Biden and the Democratic administration is going to start pressuring Jerome Powell a little bit harder to take down the interest rates at a faster clip. Just like President Trump did last time when Jerome Powell wanted to increase the interest rates from 0 to like 2. He tried to fight it all he can. I think the Biden administration is going to kind of do the same thing, especially in an election year, which would actually help the economy as well, at least in the short term. I think actually he should keep the higher rates for a little bit longer. But most Americans probably won't like that, and the administration definitely won't like that. So he will probably end up taking back the rates at least a little bit, and that will help the economy too as we get later into next year. And then, of course, we have China coming in as well, probably sometime next year. I'm not exactly sure when. They're being very careful. And, at the beginning of 2025, we obviously have the big banks in the United States being able to keep crypto as 2% of their reserve. And that could also be billions of dollars of inflow, which would pump the price even further. And there'll be more bullish sentiment then because the interest rate should be getting back up to normal by 2025. And we have banks buying in at a large rate. So I'm looking at 150,000 by maybe like early to mid 2025, and that will probably be the peak. And then there'll be some kind of subsequent dump. But since the large banks are actually holding some of it, the dump might not be 75% next time. It only might be like 50 or 60% next time. So I'm looking at maybe like a $60,000 bottom or so for the next dump. And plus we won't really be like plagued by high inflation and interest rates during the next dump as well. So it overall should be much better for us. So the timeline goes like, we will rise slowly until maybe like early next year. By the time, and like in early next year, we should reach 50, 60,000 by the halving. And then after the halving, we should actually reach about 100,000 by year's end next year, and then go to about 150 once the banks can actually buy Bitcoin or crypto as part of their reserves. And then you should probably sell around April the year in 2025 to actually cash in on some of those profits. So those are my predictions and the timelines. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.